Okay, so welcome to my TED Talk on building UI that works and all the lessons from building GrowBud thus far. So GrowBud is a very UI intense game, lots of interfaces, lots of information to communicate, and the biggest challenge is trying to communicate that without overwhelming. That is still a work in progress and a lot of refinement still happening in trying to present information in a mostly intuitive way, um, using various methods that I'll explain now of trying to indicate importance to certain things, so creating a hierarchy of importance and highlighting information that is most necessary, and then providing additional information if the user so wishes to discover that as well. So the first thing I want to show is just an intro screen. Your intro screen is quite an important part of a game. It sets up the mood. And there's just a few little tips and tricks that I employed on this little intro screen, which was movement. Movement's a really nice one. You can use tools like DoTween to really easily add some movement, so the characters just move up and down. You can see the little icons at the background over here. They also just move in a somewhat random movement. Their random movement's actually using the wiggle component from the feel package. So if you don't know what feel is a great package on the Unity asset store that provides a library of ways to make your game feel better. So it's a lot of animation stuff. There's sound stuff as well. I think there's particle effects, shaders. There's quite a few things packed into that. So feel is a really nice package to take a look at. But otherwise, if you want to just roll your own kind of solutions. DoTween is super powerful for doing that. You can just do little movements. You can scale things. You can punch things. Um, you can have it loop infinitely as well. There's so much that you can do with DoTween very simply, and it can just be like a single line of code or two lines of code. Really useful. Um, Yeah, so the movement really helps just add some life to this. I think that's probably the biggest issue I see with interfaces is that they're just very static. And adding some movement, some basic movement to things. And there's another trick I'll show you guys just now about using shaders to bring it to life as well. That does help a lot. So you can see in the background, I'm also using a scrolling texture. Scrolling textures are also really easy to set up in Shader Graph. It's just add the time node and use an offset, what's it, timing and offset node, something like that. And you're just basically offsetting the UVs in a direction infinitely, essentially. The one thing you do need to note there is your texture that you use does need to be set to wrapping, the wrap mode in the import settings. So you just click on the image and you go set the wrap mode to wrapping, and then you're good to go. Really easy thing. You can just put that same shader on, it can be on a sprite or it could be on a world space UI element or a 2D spaced element as well. Then the next thing is adding a bit of additional animation when you click on things. So UI is also meant to be interactive. So you want things to respond instantly, and then you want things to respond in a way that fits the game's theme as well. So for this game, it's fairly chill. So the animations are quite smooth, and I use a lot of fading as well. So just tweaking the alpha value on the canvas group component, and then staggering the fading as well. So having one thing fade and then the other and then the other. Um, I also note the like click to enter over here, kind of gently fading in and out, drawing more attention to it than the other elements. So that's quite a nice way to do it as well, just to kind of indicate importance from an interactive point of view. So click to enter, it then does a little zoom and fade in. So nice and gentle, easy to get into it. Lock that. Cool. Okay. Cool. Then, yeah, the next thing, this was actually quite a cool one that I came up with was my challenge was how do I move between full screen pages in a game like this? So I don't have a full screen to work with. So what would feel natural in trying to get from, say, this interface to the other interface? And I thought of like some cheesy solutions like Star Wars wipes, and I just tested it, and it felt pretty good. So that's how I went with it. It was just like a little screen wipe like that. And basically, when it gets to covering the entire page or the entire screen at that midpoint where it's perfectly white, that's where I will then turn things on and off. So basically, enable certain content, disable certain content. Um, and it creates a really nice effect of going back and forth. Um, it like clearly defines certain spaces in the game as well, and I can use that same wipe in any point in the game. So, and I also control the direction of the wipe. Notice how when you go back, it does the opposite. So it goes forward, then it goes back. Yes, question.
With this wipe, is it using a an image or is it a shader type of thing?
So it's three parts. It's a gradient image, and then solid white, and then the gradient image flipped.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Cool. Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
So I can actually show you what it looks like. Where is my Unity? Nope, that's not it. There. So the screen wipe is transition. No, that's the whole click to enter. There it is. Yeah. So there, one main image, and then the two gradients on the sides of that. And then it's just
Okay. Cool.
rotated a little bit, 16
And then
degrees.
that just moves across the screen,
And
and
that
then the
just
entire screen's
moves
white.
exactly
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Okay.
Just moves from
Cool.
side to side. Very
Very
simple,
cool.
very effective. Then, yeah, the next point, adding life to static. So the scrolling backgrounds, as I showed you in the intro there, simple and effective. So on each of the major interfaces, there's always some movement happening somewhere. There's the background just gently scrolling across there. There's also those little sheen effects on any new strains that you might have not played around with yet. So that's also drawing attention. Um, yeah, so anything that requires attention has got some kind of animation to it. I don't know if you can tell very easily on the stream, but this kind of glowy edge over here is also animating, pulsing a little bit, going softer and brighter. So that also just adds some life to the UI. There you can see it more clearly on the emblem over there. How it goes brighter and softer, and then it's also got that little movement, that rotation on it. So try and find ways that your interface in some way can be alive. And there's so many different ways of doing it. So the scrolling backgrounds is a great way. Adds a sense of movement and life. It's really cheap as well. Like you're just adding some movement to it. And then the glow shader as well, which has it uses the image vertex color, so it actually gets the color from the image. And if you create a shader graph using the new UI based shaders, it automatically has the reference to the image component like kind of built into it. So all you have to do is do a vertex color node, and that will get that color from the image component. And then you can do something with that. So basically, I take that and then multiply it by an HDR color, and that gives you some bloom. As long as your UI then is set from overlay, screen space overlay to camera space. So on the canvas component, there's the default is a screen space overlay. But if you want any sort of post-processing to affect that, like making it bloomy, then make that screen space camera. And basically it attaches the canvas to the camera at a certain distance. The default distance is like 4 meters, so that's pretty far into the scene. So what you might find immediately is that you have 3D objects obscuring that interface. So then just change that plane distance to like 0.1 and then you're good to go. But yeah, that makes everything nice and glowy then, and post-processing affects it. Yeah, and then the other thing I did with that was add a gradient noise to the shader so that it kind of pulses like that. It has like a wave effect. I can show you what the shader looks like real quick here. No, it's not that one actually. That's this one. Yeah, so it's got time node that just makes it scroll. So it's got direction and speed. Then that's the tiling and offset node to just move it. That plugs it into the gradient noise. So there's the noise. Um, and then that's multiplied by a texture over here. That texture is the texture from the image component. So as long as you name it main text, that the reference over here is main text, then it will get that image from the image component. So that gets plugged in, multiplied by a color, an HDR color, and then you have nice bloomy UI with a gradient noise scrolling over it. Cool. Then the next thing I use a lot, especially in this game, simple fading in and out, things fading. So just trying to find a nice example of it. Okay, well there, yeah, you see how those icons fade in and out? So that all uses the canvas group. So there's a lot of canvas groups within the UI, and a canvas group basically takes any UI element below it and it controls the alpha, the interactability, and blocking raycasts as well. So it's really nice to add at the top of a hierarchy, a UI hierarchy, and then you can control the vision or the visibility of that entire sub hierarchy. The other thing I then made was the canvas group fader script. So this basically sits alongside all my canvas groups so that I can easily just fade something in and out by enabling or disabling this component. And what this means then is that all fading in the game is standardized. So I don't have to go and handle turn alpha to 0, turn off interactable, turn off block raycast. That's like three things you have to do every time you want to turn it on and off. So I wrap that into a component over here. It's got a couple events as well that you can hook into. So if you want things to happen when the fade starts or when it ends, then you can do that. But otherwise, it then has a standardized duration for the fade, which makes it a lot easier to um, keep everything nice and uniform then throughout the whole interface. And it's really easy then. It's just canvas group fader dot enable or disable in my code, and it handles that for me. No problems then. So I use this a lot in most of my projects. Actually, I bring this one in. It's quite a nice standard component now for me. Cool. Then the world space UI. So world space UI was not something that I worked a lot with previously. I mean, I think in Virtual Window, it was like little dialogue pop-ups above the characters. Otherwise, like little indicators in the scene. That was pretty much the extent of World Space UI. Most of it was going to be, or most of it was usually overlay, screen space overlay, so 2D on the HUD, and then it would follow 3D elements in the world. So this was a cool challenge in creating World Space UI. I guess in this kind of setting, it's not really that difficult to see it because the camera's always fixed. But the issues with world space UI in a typical 3D game would be like scaling because it's obviously based on your depth. So as you get closer to things, things get bigger. So then you're dealing with like massive text. So the biggest challenge here, though, was linking the 3D to the 2D. So ensuring that there's a strong intuitive understanding that this UI element matches this in-world game object. So there's a few ways that we resolved this. One was just outlines. Outlines help with that a lot. So if I hover over one of the UI elements here, so like the temperature, it then highlights the light and the fan. And if you then read further, it says that the air temperature is affected by the light and the fan. So outlines definitely help bring attention to those elements. Um, Then, oh, the cursor changing. Yeah, so some other feedback systems, the cursor changes as you hover over things. That really helps indicate that something is interactive. And I've got three different cursors, but I'll explain that on a different slide. And then tooltips also appear on different things to reinforce the communication. So with UI, you don't want to do things in single phases. You want multiple steps to reinforce an understanding as well. You want to make sure that, like I said, that intuitive understanding of how UI is connected to a certain game element. Um, so the more layers you can add to reinforce that, the better. So add some sound, add some animation, the outlining, the tooltips, the cursor. I mean, there's a whole range of things that are happening there for something as simple as just hovering over one element in the game. But you want to try and create that intuitive understanding of the game then. Let's just upgrade that one so far. Let that one grow. Cool. Then equipment state and actions. So in the game, you use equipment to basically take care of your plants, and almost everything in the grow house is interactable. So already there's consistency in making sure that everything is interactable, apart from the soil bag at the moment, because that is a coming soon feature. Yeah, it was temporarily disabled. But yeah, otherwise you interact with something, you can clearly see the outline, draws attention to it, the cursor then changes, and if you click on it, you get some nice little UI to do something with that. So plant something, water something, change the number of fan hours, and then you get these little indicators as well to indicate when something is wrong. So the warning system, it's icons right on top of the equipment as well. It also indicates if it's so. In this case, it's a problem with the light itself. There is no other UI that indicates light because light affects the air temperature and the growth rate. But like the humidity then is in danger because the fan has been set to uh, kind of an unpleasant value for the plant. So if you click on this, you can see then all the values are changing in real time as well. If you hover over things, it gives you more information. So hopefully this communicates enough that A, there's a problem. Uh, Red skull generally indicates intuitively that there's a problem. So clicking on it, the animation is also a lot more intense. You can see the red warning ones have got a much more vigorous animation compared to the simple warning over there. The big warnings here are also pulsing, and you can see clearly then as a detailed explanation. Like if you really don't know what's going on, then here will tell you your plant is not receiving adequate light for healthy growth. So then it's like, okay, click on the light, and then you start messing with it. Oh, look, it changes. So there's that direct and immediate feedback as well, so that players can grasp or kind of develop that intuitive understanding that okay, the plant is generally happy between 13 hours and 23 hours. So then you can kind of put it anywhere between there, go check out the values again, and okay, it's on 88%, so let's see what happens if we move it up. Ah, it likes a higher temperature or higher light hours. And then same thing for the fan. You just tweak it until you find a happy point for the plant. Um, yes, question.
Regarding the, I guess, the balancing and all that of these systems, you mentioned in the very start, like this is a very casual game. So I'm assuming that there's no fail states or anything like that. Like you can't, unless you probably don't satisfy all the needs, your plant can't necessarily die.
Yeah, you can't
Um,
kill a plant.
yeah,
That
yeah.
that would go
Okay, cool.
against the casual nature of the
Yes,
game.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So all that
Okay.
happens is if you like really intentionally set it in the worst configuration, it
Hmm.
won't grow anymore. It'll just kind of stop where it was.
Yeah.
And if you have it on a low enough value that it does keep growing, it's just going to grow a lot slower.
Hmm.
And eventually, if it does harvest, then you're just going to get a care failure, which just um, halves the
Oh,
yield, the
yes,
returns that you get from it.
yes.
Yeah,
Okay, cool, cool.
yeah. So it's nothing too
Nice.
hectic.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I've got a couple slides like this, screenshots of like early mock-ups, wireframes, drawings as well of like how I approach UI. So this UI for the needs, I drew inspiration from Rust, Rust's farming mechanics as well. Had a whole bunch of ranges of different things that the plant needed. So I took that idea and kind of reworked it a bit. This was an early mock-up of it. Like you want to click on it to get an idea of what each of the needs are. I think that we can probably still do a bit of work on the icons that are used, make them read a bit better. But like humidity is such a difficult icon to actually communicate something. So as I said before, you got to do that multiple layers. So it's an icon, plus it's a slider, plus it's a tooltip. Um, and then I suppose the other thing we could do is if you hover over the the need over here, highlighting the light outline would help again, so that you can see that it's directly linked. Cool. Then the strain library. This went through a couple different iterations. It started off as this actually, a carousel of seed packets that you could then purchase other seeds, uh, and then select one from that carousel. But that, I mean, it felt cool, but it was, I don't know, it was a bit strange in that it was a horizontal carousel in a vertical format. So you could only ever see one thing at a time, and it made it very difficult to get an overview of what you had available to you. Then it went over to this kind of interface where it had um, multiple seed packets on the screen at once, and they have different visual states as well, indicating like if this one's available versus undiscovered versus discovered but not used. So that was a new one there as well. And this one was better, but it still didn't allow you to get a really kind of removed bird's eye view, so a better grasp of all the strains that you had available to you. And then that moved over to having the strain library, which was an idea I had previously, but it wasn't connected to strains at first. It was more like a show-off point. So they kind of melded together into this idea of having shelves of different jars, and then all your strains would end up in those jars essentially. So you could also get an idea of like how many you've discovered, their state as well. Uh, yeah, let's go back here. Cool. So the challenge then is showing info without making the jars absolutely massive. So in this one, at least you could have 18 jars on screen all at once. So you get a lot more information available to you at once. And the tags are somewhat big enough that you can still read the titles on them. But then this little hover effect really kind of cemented that this was a viable direction to go, because you could just easily hover over something and see more information about them. And it feels really satisfying to kind of hover over these things and have the UI pop in and out like that. So yeah, 3D jars with world space tags, and then the tags tween from the jar to a readable position on hover, like that. Reduce the base content and increase the font size, so it's only got the title and the number of the strain as well. And then, oh, and also some progress. So you can see a bar of progress there indicating your strain level as well. Yes, question.
Would you consider giving a slight audio for every time you hover over one of those cards?
There is actually. Let me just boost the volume a little bit.
I think I'm just not hearing.
Maybe the stream is muted.
Ah, there we go. Yeah, I'm hearing it now. I think it was muted. Okay, yeah, that sounds very satisfying. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely satisfying. Yeah, so basically the idea was that detail comes to the player. That detail is available when the player wants it. The other concept, which is still one that I'm working towards making better, is that users don't need to hunt for information, that it is like right there at your fingertips. Cool. Then another one. Yeah, question.
Sorry, apologies. With regards to, you said it's a world space object, and then it just is that still the same world space object? You're just fading in different information when it gets close to the camera, or is that a different object?
So this hover
If that
tag
makes
is actually a separate object. So
okay,
what I
okay,
do is on hover, I position it to match the tag that is on the jar, and then I
mm,
pull it
mm,
forward a bit,
okay,
and then I just
I
exchange
see.
the information on the world space UI there.
And then if you click on it, there was more information on it.
Yeah,
Okay, and then this is also just the object that rotates
yeah,
and fades in. Oh, it looks very cool.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So
Okay,
this
cool.
this point over here, proximity elements. I mean, it's not really that new. It's just kind of upgraded from a hover. So instead of just hovering over something and changing the state, what I wanted to do was the mouse is basically your form of exploration in the game. Like you're not moving a character around, your mouse is the character essentially. And so what I wanted was that if you move the mouse over somewhere, that it then changed the state of something. So you can see the arrow changes state there as I move closer to it. And that was so that I could reduce the visual clutter when you don't need it, and then show something to kind of indicate interactivity as you get closer to it.
Mm, yeah, no, that makes sense. That's very nice.
And then also when you hover over it, then it kind of hints at a rotation.
Mm.
I was about to ask, wouldn't probably have tested it, but just what happens if you just go to the thing and oh wait, no, sorry, never mind, never mind. I see it's happening. Don't worry.
Cool. Juicy animations, thanks to DuTween as well.
I was just about to ask, and these are all still just
Yeah,
due tween animations. No, that's very cool.
yeah, feels very satisfying to do that. Yeah, so basically the proximity detection, I've got an input handler script that has all the input registrations. So using the input system, that's where the mouse gets detected, that's where raycasting happens, that's where button presses are all detected and listened for as well. So it's just one single static class that listens to all of that. And then anything else can just read from that. So this proximity script then just reads the mouse position from that input handler, and it just checks, is it within a target rect? So this rect can be any size. So I've sized it just bigger than there so that if you move closer to it, it then kind of activates. Um, and then it just exchanges a few things. So there's like the white semi-transparent color versus the black or the grayish color there. And you can see it's, as I move over it, it will turn certain images on, and it also changes the color of certain graphics there. And like good UI is unnoticeable. You don't notice that you kind of just feel it more than you notice things. If you're noticing UI, you will notice bad UI rather than notice good UI. Like good UI just feels good. Um, and you don't really see all the details like the fact that that icon is actually changing color. You just feel it. Like it just feels cool. Yeah, so also part of my process of creating UI is just sketching something. Really roughly, as you can see, not beautiful art in the least, but it's kind of the most flexible way of designing, because you can easily just erase something and start again, or just completely chuck out something and try a different approach to it. So sketching is a really nice way to start out, and it's also it's freeing in that you're not getting into a state of technical implementation. So you're not thinking about how you're going to implement it, you're thinking from a design point of view. What is the information that I need to show, and what is the best way to show that without kind of overwhelming or confusing as well. Okay, then tooltips. This was actually a lot more challenging than I thought, having tooltips that are effective. A little bit of music. So the tooltips, they're built in everywhere really. There's tooltips on 3D objects and there's tooltips on 2D objects, um, and it's made up of three parts. There's the display, so the tooltip display script, and then there's the tooltip pointer scripts, the 3D and the 2D one. And then you can hover over like a 2D object there, and it'll show a tooltip. And if you hover over like a UI item as well, it can also show that same tooltip. There's also different states. So like there, it's got a title and it's got like a description section in a smaller size. And so the main challenge with this was having the box sizable, but to stay to a minimum size. Otherwise, to size itself according to the content. And yeah, so that was actually quite a tricky thing to resolve. You have to. So the way to resolve that was set the text, measure the text, resize the container, set it to a defined size. Yeah, not all that fun, but it's working now, and it seems to work fairly well. So even if I go and change the language to something like Russian. Russian is long. Everything is just much more. There's a lot of text there. There are definitely still areas that we need to polish up the UI to work with the other languages. And like Chinese is very condensed, so the tooltips then are much smaller. There's some overlap that we need to resolve. Cool. Yes, my favorite. 9 slicing sprites. This saves so much time when crafting UI. If you can have a simple style made up of a few base shapes, like this one is made up of basically these 3 sprites and a couple variants in between. But essentially it's a 9 sliced rounded rectangle with like hand-drawn rough edges, and you can see it used everywhere here. So all these little borders, they all have the same consistent shaping, and so these borders go from extra thick to thin. I think there's like 5 variations of thickness there that are then used throughout the UI. And that's used to craft everything, all these little elements here. Yes.
Hello, it's me again.
Yes.
With regards to 9 slicing the images, how do you prevent it from stretching when you do scale it up and down and use it on different sizes and stuff? If that question makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So first off, these are the images that I use. I've got a couple different variants here as well. Like there's one where the bottom is flat, or the top is flat, the sides are flat. So that also helps. This collection of sprites I use in most of my games actually. And then the slicing part of it, we open up the slicer here. So the 9 slicing works where the corners maintain, so they're always going to be that shape or that aspect, so they never get stretched. Then the top, left, right, and the bottom get stretched to fit the width and the height of the container. And then the center gets completely stretched as well. So if you have any sort of texturing in the middle there, it's going to get stretched and it's going to look bad. You can also set it to
Yeah.
tile. Let's go and add image. Where did it end up? Okay, so there's an image, and if I go and drop in one of my sliced images, so it immediately changes to sliced. If you changed it to tiled, it still also slices, but then the inside is repeated. So sliced then
Okay.
works like that. And if I go and change the sizing, you can see how it's like stretching out here, but that's because of this pixels per multiplier. So this is a pretty big image. It's 1 by 1, 1K essentially. So if I had this set at 1024 by 1024, that is the image that matches now.
Yeah.
But I want it to be like 60 by 60. I'm going to use it as a small thing. So you can use this pixels per multiplier over here to basically match that, or kind of bring it back down to a usable size.
Yeah, the tiling actually answered my question as well, because I think that was then the thing I was missing, because I have some textured images that I'm trying to, and it stretches
Yeah,
a bit
and you got to
wonky. So I
tile the
think the
inside.
tiling, yeah. No, cool. Thank you very much. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
So you get much like sharper corners by using that pixels per unit multiplier there. But this also, you want to use this sparingly or as consistently as possible. So using values that are consistent across the UI. So everywhere I've got like a button, let's find a prefab. Oops. So like this one's got a background fill with a multiplier 8 there, and then the inner is also using that same value there. So that is consistent sizing throughout the UI. Yeah, so you can do borders. The other way to do it was like actually what I was showing there now. When you want a border, you can either make a border image, or you can actually do this kind of thing where you have an inner. So you just have an image on top of another image, and then you get it like a border type effect. Okay, yeah, this is probably my pet peeve of UI, when people don't relatively scale things. So setting defined sizes, if you just set everything as the default, you create a new UI element there, and it gets put in the hierarchy. Like if I just go and add, so the default values over here, it's anchored to the middle there, and it's a default width of 100 by 100. So now you might be tempted to just go and say, okay, cool, well, I need it up here in the top left corner actually, or the bottom corner or whatever. And then you're going to go and like scale it, and you're going to size it like that, and maybe you're going to stretch it a bit, and then you're going to position it down here and think, cool, job done. Oh, geez. Okay, so many things wrong with this. One, it's anchored to the middle of the screen. So if you were to change your aspect ratio, you might more than likely be having your screen as a free aspect. So now if I change the height, look how it disappears, just goes off the screen. And that's because it's anchored to the middle of the screen. So it's always going to look at the middle of the screen, and then it's going to offset itself by that negative 1475 pixels. So obviously it's going to break your UI as soon as you run it on anything else. When you're creating UI, you want to make sure that you're in the target aspect ratio, first of all, just to make sure that you're designing UI according to what it's actually going to be experienced as. But then when you're positioning things, you want to anchor to a side of the screen where the content's actually going to exist. So if this was like this productivity bonus down here at the bottom, then I don't want to anchor it to the center of the screen. I want to anchor it to the bottom of the screen. So now if I size the screen differently, it's going to be relative to the bottom of the screen. So it's always going to be this defined distance, 305 now, from the bottom of the screen. Okay, so that takes care of the anchoring part of it. Okay, the next part of it, the sizing and scaling. Sizing and scaling are two different things. And when you're working with UI, you never, ever want to scale something. The only reason for scaling something is if you're tweening it slightly. And in that case, you're scaling it uniformly by a very small amount just to kind of give it like a pulse or maybe a hover effect. When you hover over it, it scales down a little bit or something like that. But otherwise, scale is not what you want to use. You want to use width and height. The reason for that is that the whole UI system, the event system, is driven by the size, not the scale. So when you hover over things, when you're detecting like raycasts and all that, it doesn't care about scale. It's looking at the width and the height. This is especially apparent when the canvas scaler is being used. So if you have your scale for the UI set to scale with screen size, which is what you probably should have it set to, then scaling things gets affected very differently than sizing things. So use size for everything. And then you want to use regular values as well, or consistent values for your whole UI so that things look fairly similar. So like I usually use increments of 30. So 30 is a small space, 60 is kind of a non-important element, 90 important element, 120, 150, 180, 210. Yeah, increments of 30, even 15 as a spacing can work quite well. But figure that out for yourself. Use consistent values. Don't just almost scale it and like, oh, okay, yeah, that looks fine. Be a bit more specific about how you want to size things. Use whole values. I guess that's actually a good flagging system as well, as if you have like random values in here, something's probably wrong. You want as close to zeros as possible, especially with the positioning type thing. So you want to position elements with zeros in mind as much as possible. So like if I was creating this productivity bonus thing over here again, I would rather start with having a parent that kind of encapsulates the space that I want to work with. So let's see, what's that? Make it 600. Say this bottom area is now the space that I want to work with. So I've got a defined parent sizing of 600 there. How do I... that. There we go. And then I would put the button inside of that. So rather have the button then anchored to the middle of that parent's box. So nice zeros then. And what I could even do then is make the button relatively sized for the width as well. So let me change the color of this one so we can see what it's doing. So say I want my button to only be 120 in height, but then I want it to take up the full width and then maybe give a padding of, let's say, 210 on either side. So now it's nicely relatively sized. And if I were to then change my mind and say, okay, I actually want this element to be at the top, then I could easily anchor it to the top and all my child elements are still good. So everything's nice and relative. Rudy asks, how do I manage the UI scale option in GrowBud? So with that, I have here. I have this script called setting UI scale, and basically it just changes the scalar values over here by a certain amount, which is a very cheap way of doing it. It's not the best way of doing it, but because all my UI is designed relatively, so like what I was just showing about how you make the parent box, then you make the child elements within that, so everything's relatively sized, I can do this kind of thing where it just sizes the reference resolution, or changes the reference resolution to a slightly different size, and yeah, then it's basically good to go. Now all the UI is much bigger. Yes, question.
With that type of UI scaling that you just showed, I'm assuming it's pretty much just testing on and seeing what looks good on certain sizes and stuff
Yeah.
to find the right numbers to change it to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's can Paulo read it? Then it's good.
Yeah.
That's the
Yes.
measuring stick.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. That's good. That's a good reference. Cool.
Paulo
Good to
currently,
know.
not Paulo when he gets older, because then it's going to be no game. It's just going to be UI.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
This is a cool feature that we added as well. So we had this issue. You can see here, environment volume. The text gets cut out there. So we added this sort of horizontal scroll for any long words. So if you hover over it, then it just scrolls the rest of it, and then it resets to the beginning as well. So in different languages, that is absolutely needed. I did that in shapes as well because with German, German words are just bloody long. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, the German language has got really long words and sentences. So this kind of solution was absolutely necessary for that. You couldn't just fit a single word in a defined UI space like that. So yeah, scrolling it helps see the rest of it then. Cool. So yeah, build relatively spaced UI. As long as you have zeros, zeros are your best friend. They just feel good as well, having zeros and having the UI kind of all fit like that. So yeah, here's an example as well of using the hierarchy or the hierarchy at play here, having the upper level. So my level 1 box is this red one over here, and that is using a grid layout to then create the sizing and spacing of each of the elements below it. And it's a grid because, if I go check here, you can see some of them have got like multiple columns here. So there's single column, that one's double column. So I needed the layout to be very flexible, that I could literally just go and duplicate a bunch of these, and the UI just handles it for me. I don't have to go write any scripts to do any of that. As much as possible, I try to use the components that Unity has. So that grid layout group is at the top level. It does have a defined height. So that height is just based on the child elements. And then the width, the horizontal size, is being controlled by this content size fitter. So a content size fitter, super powerful component, especially when coupled with a layout group. It will look at the size of all the child elements and then force the width, in this case, because it's horizontal fit, it'll force the width to accommodate all the child elements. So then if I add extra level groupings here, it will then increase the width of the level 1 group. Oh, sorry, no, I'm looking at the level 1 group. So it's if I add more elements here, then it will size it. Like this one over here is double the width. The level 2 one is double the width. Then going down the line, as a child of that, it's the actual objective. So the little red box one over here. And that then has another layout group. So it's got the vertical layout group. Its width and height is defined by this grid layout group. So now that's also relatively sized. The vertical layout group then just stacks any information below it. So there's a title, there's the description. Those are stacked by the vertical layout group. So if I add more elements there, it will then increase that size. Or it'll stack them appropriately and align them in the middle center. And then like the description one, for instance, that one is also relatively sized based on its content. So if you put a content size fitter alongside a Text Mesh Pro element, then the content size fitter will read the values from the text. So in this case, it's adjusting the height of the text element based on the text content as well. So if it goes onto 2 lines, that the height of this element will then change from 47.89 to whatever. And that just then allows the vertical layout group to recenter things correctly as well. So if we find an let's change the language, then we can see what a double line looks like here. So there, double line, still nice and centered, and that's because of that content size fitter being used there. So yeah, use the layout components, content size fitter components, and make everything relatively sized. Try and avoid defined sizing as much as possible. Okay, yeah, then the aspect ratio was a major constraint in this game as well. We've got a very small amount of screen space, and it's a very tall, kind of almost non-standard aspect ratio. I guess in this approach, it's kind of taking it from like a mobile development point of view, like trying to create UI that can communicate at small sizes with limited space as well. Yeah, so the solutions developed, you can see over here, the scroll views are used quite extensively, horizontal ones and vertical ones. So we've got, you can even scroll on a scroll view and it will hijack that input to forward it to the correct directional scroll view. So that was an issue before, was if you, with the standard Unity stuff, if you just grab on a scroll view, it will immediately start scrolling that particular scroll instead of, so you can't have like nested ones like this. So the solution for that was to just write a script that basically hijacks the input, checks which direction you're headed, so if you're going vertical or horizontal, and then choose the appropriate scroll rect based on that. So it doesn't work with the mouse scroll though. I'm still going to get to that eventually, but at least you can click and drag things quite comfortably. So this should translate quite nicely to mobile as well when that does happen. Yeah, so because we have this vertical kind of modular layout as well, it means that we can have infinite content here. So we've got an infinite amount of space to the right with horizontal scroll views, and we've also got like an infinite amount of space with vertical scroll views. And then it's got like a nice little fade over here, so the content also doesn't overlap or doesn't just like cut at any point. It's using that same gradient fade that was on the screen wipe, and it just hides the content nicely at the bottom and at the top. And having content sort of fade out like that also indicates that there's more content to be found, so that it's not like a perfectly cut off screen, so you don't realize that it's a scroll view. So whenever you're doing scroll views as well, if you want to hint at the user that there's more content, cut something off. So like over here, we've got that seed packet over there is cut off, indicating there is more to see, and then that's reinforced as well by the actual scroll bar there as well. If we go see what this looks like, so let me just change back to English. So we harvest over here. So same kind of structure, multiple modules of content, all within a scroll view. So there's the top element that's always there. It's kind of like anchored there. That's the most important information about the harvest, like how did you do? And then there are these little modules. So there's the earnings module, that's the level progression module there, the penalties module, the achievements module, and then the research module as well. And they've all got custom heights. So like the achievements will stack and it'll get taller using a content size fitter. So the more achievements there are, the more height it uses. Same for the penalties as well. If there's more penalties, it'll use up more height as well. So very flexible in nature. There we go. See here. So when I want the player to focus attention on something, then I'll use something called a modal. So a modal is just like a pop-up essentially. And so it fades out the background a little bit. That's just an image that's on semi-transparent. And then show some information above that with only like, a couple different options to pick from. So let's choose that one. There's animation happening. You can see here that little scale animation so that there's more life in the UI again. Scrolling background. We've got the glow also creating some movement, and then we've also got the character down over here with some movement. And I'm using that proximity idea again as well. So when you hover over it, it like leans forward. Yeah, this was a cool one. So doing typing text, you might just think, cool, string, and you just keep adding letters to the string. The problem with that is that this box gets sized by the text. So if the text is changing, then the box size is going to keep changing. So the way I worked around that was to set the text, the whole text to begin with, so that the box sized to the final size, and then each of the individual letters. With TextMesh Pro and rich text, you can set the color. So basically it's just tweening the color or animating the color as it goes from alpha, so complete invisible, to the final black color, and it creates this little typing out effect like that without having the box sizing the whole time. Yeah, and you can actually fast forward the text as well by just clicking the button. Yeah, that works nicely. Cool, yeah, so we spoke about modular interfaces a little bit, having each of the modules there. Each of the modules dictates its own height and width. Some of them have that horizontal scrolling effect. Some of them are, yeah, there's no vertical scroll bar within a vertical scroll bar though, because that would break things. But you can have horizontal in a vertical. Self-contained layout logic as well. And then each of these modules has its own script as well, so it's like really easy to kind of plug in new ones or remove ones as the game progresses or changes. And always use layout groups and content size fitters for everything as well. Cool, here's some work in progress, or kind of showing what the harvest summary looked like to begin with. Quite basic. And then the design process, going from just kind of sketching it out, thinking about how it could be presented in a way that feels nice, that also highlights the most important information. And in this case, it's about, you know, getting or progressing the level of each of the strains, getting to that 5-star grow, like a perfect grow. So that's what's front and center, that's what's animated as well. And if you get a 5-star, it's a much more impactful animation than just a 3-star. And then if you go down the list, then you get to all the other goodies. So there's generally a nice flow working through the UI there. And this was the design process for the club interfaces. So start off with just thinking about, okay, cool, I want Grow Club and Bud Club to be this kind of thing that the user thinks about, and there are different approaches to things. Like the Grow Club is focused on growth and genetic modification, versus the Bud Club is all about the business side of things, making like the perfect, most rewarding or yielding bud at the end of the day. And then thinking about the information that this interface should show, it's okay, so the club progression, your current state as well. So how many club challenges have you completed? How many strains have you mastered for this level? And if you go down, you get more detail. So there's always like a summary and then additional detail further down. Prefabs, prefabs, prefabs. If you haven't been using prefabs, now's the time to start. Prefabs save lives. It's, yeah, especially with UI, prefabs are very valuable. So having a prefab for a button means that every time you make a new button or you add a new button to an interface, there's consistency involved. It also means that there's you know, a defined set of interaction. So like with all of my prefabs, if I go let's find a basic button. So here's a basic button. It's got the background image, the button component there. It's got a shadow on it as well. This is a really nice UI component if you aren't aware of it yet. Just adds a little shadow behind it. Really nice. And then it's got the cursor setter, so it changes the cursor to a pointer. And then it's also got an audio clip as well. Now imagine if you've already designed this entire interface, you've got like 300 buttons, and it's not a prefab. That means you have to go to 300 buttons now later on in the process and go and set up like a play audio clip component on all of them, or tell it to change the cursor for all of them. Now later on you want to change the audio clip. Now you got to go to all 300 buttons again and change the audio reference. So be smart, use prefabs. And if you haven't been using them till now, there's also this feature in Unity where you can right click on something, go to prefab, and you can say replace or reconnect. So replace will replace it entirely. Reconnect will try and match the hierarchy for you. So yeah, you can use those two as well to connect it to a prefab. And then once you have a prefab, you can make prefab variants. So this variant over here, you can see it's a lot fancier. That's why it's called the button fancy. And this one is based on the original button, which is this little dude over here. It's got the background, the inner, and then an icon, so very basic. And the fancy button takes that a step further and replaces the icon with a mask, and then it's got this leaf inside it, which has a wiggle component, so this leaf actually moves around. I can actually show you in the genes here. So there's the button. So it's got that little leaf that moves around. The leaf is all glowy as well. It's got that same material on it. So I've got three versions or three intensity levels of the glowy script. So I use them in different ways. So like that outer, there's this outer ring there, the base one there. So that's using a level 3 glow. Then the inner is using just a level 1 glow. And that leaf is using a level 3 glow as well. So having them all stacked like that creates a cool deep effect. The movement helps a lot as well. And then like this one's also got some currency indicated there. Once again, also with that glowy shader. So any UI, I can just go and drop in one of those glowy materials there. And it doesn't matter what color the element is, because it'll take that color from the UI, from the image component. So nice and flexible there. Just discard. Cool. Here's the cursors. So these are all from Kenny, and then I modified them a bit. So Kenny's got some nice cursor packs. Definitely worth taking a look at. Basically, with a cursor, you want it to sort of resemble the theming of the game, but then also to stand out completely. So black and white, that helps a lot. Having just an outline, or you can do like a shadow maybe, but like this cursor stands out really nicely against all the different colors and contrasts in the game. And then the other thing I thought to do was I wanted to distinguish when an item had more to say, if it had a tooltip. Because what I was finding when people were playing was that they weren't holding long enough on an object to see the tooltip. So if you hover over something, they were just kind of going and not actually seeing the tooltip. So I added the little question mark there to indicate that it has more information. If you just hold on it just a little bit longer, then you'll see that extra information. So then that little variant then just checks if there is a tooltip component on that object, and if it is, then it'll use that sprite rather than the other one. Right, then the gene expression interface. This one was an interesting one to think of and to design. The idea with this is like it's a skill tree, sort of. It's a choose your own adventure. But the idea was that there could be a lot of gene expressions. Filtered by the strain, the heritage. So if it's a sativa, it would get a subset of the gene expressions. Right now it just gets everything. But I wanted it to also feel juicy, so you can see like there's some nice animation when you click on things. There's so you can basically just move your cursor around to see, basically just explore the interface, and then if you click on it, it would stay in place there. You can purchase things, and then you can activate. So if those two are activated, then they're always showing as well. So it's layers of depth in the interface, so that it's not everything all at once all the time, but rather what is appropriate to your selection and to your intentions as well, like what you want to do with it. The large scrolling canvas was an idea of basically having a lot more space than what the window is showing. And because each element only takes up a small amount of screen space, this kind of works. and once again using that fade to indicate that there's more beyond the screen. So you can drag around it, feels pretty good. Most of the game has got like dragging as well, and the root structure was thematically on point as well. This is actually going to change to 2 hemispheres, one being all your heritage-based expressions, so sativa-based expressions versus indica versus hybrid, and then the other side is going to be universal expressions, so things that apply to all strains. So you won't be seeing everything all at once, but rather only what's appropriate to you, because this still is a bit overwhelming to new users. There's just a lot of icons and things moving and a lot of information to kind of understand. So I am working on simplifying this even more. And then the other thing is your overview over here. So what's important is the amount of stars that you have available to you, and yeah, what you can do with them and how much each of these expressions are going to cost, and what you currently have stacked. So we've got speed and we've got stage master. And if we add stage master, then we can add that. And now, well, let's trim that one first. And we have this cool option to skip an entire growth stage. We can do that once per growth cycle, resets after harvest. So that's the point of the gene expressions. And then you can come back and say, okay, well, I've kind of used that one, so let me switch over to water-wise then. But you're spending your stars at each point. So there are ways to make the user think that they're exploiting the system in a way, but I mean, this kind of just, the intention is to figure out how you want to play and optimize for your play style. Oh, there's a really nice one here. Down this one, there's this idle master one, so you get a 50% growth boost during idle periods. So if you walk away from your computer, then it'll continue growing instead of just going stagnant, which is nice. Yeah, so here's some work in progress of when I created or came up with the concept for the interface. So decided roots would be a cool way to do it, and then I was looking at like little nodes on each root, and what that would look like. So groupings of different expressions. So you've got like the grow expressions, you've got the mechanical expressions, and there's a bunch of other ones, yeah. And that's kind of how it evolved to what we have now. Cool, so yeah, we're at the end. The key takeaways are, you know, start functional and then add polish as you go. Don't wait until the end to add polish. So as you're doing something, just think like, oh, actually that would be really cool if I hover over it and it scales up a little bit. Do it right there and then. The more you kind of defer things, the less likely it's going to happen. But also, you know, within reason, you don't want to spend so much time polishing a turd either. So, you know, work in steps, polish as you go, add different layers of usability and feedback. So like the different layers of usability is like coupling the tooltip plus the outline plus the cursor. That's layers. And then layering the feedback is having sound plus animation plus maybe like color changes or something like that. So most solutions came from specific UX design problems. So always start with a problem first. Define what your goals are, the intention with the interface. Like, what is the information you want to show to the user? What is the most important information? How do you make that front and center? And then how do you support that information with other stuff? An iteration over grand design. You're not going to get the design right the first time. So make peace with that and just iterate. And as long as you're following kind of the rules of like always make it modular, always use prefabs, always design everything relative. So the parent must always be sized, or the children must always be sized relative to their parents. Then you'll be fine, and it's very easy to then iterate on things. UI philosophy. So good UI is usually invisible. It just feels good. So if people are noticing UI, or talking about it, then there's probably something you can do to improve it. You notice bad UI, not good UI. Polish should communicate something as well, so don't just polish for the sake of polishing. Don't like add a jiggle if it's just for the sake of having a jiggle. Like it should indicate something. It should either call attention to it, and it should be on theme as well. So like Call of Duty wouldn't have a little bounce, that doesn't make thematic sense for that. Technical approach, consistency first, and then add personality as well. Every animation should have purpose, and constraints or features, not hindrances. I love constraints. Constraints definitely bring out much better design solutions than just having you can make anything, do whatever you want, and go for it. That's a lot more daunting. So try and find what your constraints are as well. Give yourself constraints. It will help create better designs at the end of the day. Cool. Any questions?
I don't necessarily have questions. I'm just thinking of like, okay, now I have to go redo some stuff. Or just improve some stuff. So no, thank you very much. This helped a lot.
Cool. I'm hearing discords and not seeing them. Oh, down there. Okay.
I also don't have any questions, but yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much. There's so much to learn from this. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've got lots more UI knowledge to share, but that's enough for today. So if you guys do have questions about UI and stuff, you can always just ping me in the chats, and I'll be happy to help.
Cool. Noted.
Yeah. 100%.
I have a silly question though.
Yeah.
Now that you're moving around, I do remember that. I can't remember who. I think it was Chris that showed us last year somewhere how to make, or Paul even, how to make a simple highlight shader, like you with the yellow, How did you approach that? How did you do that?
That is a really cool plugin.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, sometimes you shouldn't make it for yourself. So,
yeah, no, that's also like my thing is like, if there is something simple.
There's a free one on in the asset store called, I think, Free Outline or Simple Outline. You can just find it quickly. That one works quite nicely.
I think it's the one David shared in the workshop chat.
Yeah, I think it works for the most part.
Yeah, quick outline.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And it works. Looks like it works with standard because it's just essentially under the hood scaling up the mesh, inverting the normals.
Yeah.
It works. I think it works with URPs in built-in render pipeline, and I think it should work with HDRP. I don't see why not.
Cool. Thank you very much.
That's the one we're using with the first years for their when they're highlighting an object.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, the little the chevron animation thing that Jared's got, that shader doesn't do that for you. You're gonna have to do that yourself. That's also a simple thing. That's just a shader that you scroll from left to right inside of that, like so.
The one that's showing now.
That one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, quite a few games do that.
So that's then just like it's highlighting the item, and then there's just the text that scrolls over that highlighted mesh or area or whatever.
Yeah.
So this
Jared did, but it could be on the
outline
mesh.
shader uses screen space effects essentially.
Okay.
So if I go find the renderer here, it's this wide outline. What's this thing? Line work, that's what it's called, line work. Okay, Nero 400. Unity is in panic mode, it seems.
There's also there's new features in this version where things don't render as properly anymore. So,
You do.
Yeah, so this is
So
a
that
really
you-
cool
Oh,
asset.
okay.
It's got a bunch of different modes as well.
Okay, no, cool. That's very nice. Thank you.
Definitely worth the bucks. You can get it on sale fairly often as well on the Unity Asset Store.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm definitely gonna start looking at just Unity packs that I can get and or assets to use
I used to use a
just to
different
make
one.
life.
This one just seems way more flexible.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Cool. And I think that's that.